drinking water too, because I talked a lot already today. Drinking water too, because. All right. That's live. We're good there. Closed captioning's on. I think we are ready to party. Cool beans. Now I just need to show you what we're looking at here and make it big because Casey told me it's very distracting when the things are on the side. So play from current slide. All right. Hopefully everybody can see what's going on. We're going to be talking about retrieves part 2 today. So we're going to be working on the hold or duration, however you want to think about it. It's the dog has now gotten the thing in their mouth and now they need to keep it in their mouth until you tell them otherwise. So that's what we're going to be working on today. If you're just getting started here and you haven't watched part 1, it will be incredibly helpful to watch part 1. This is for all the people that aren't live right now, but because it is going to have setup stuff, how to choose your item and all that good stuff. So definitely stop now, go watch part 1 if you're looking to do the full series. Okay, we have a chat. What am I not doing? It might be something related to your computer. I don't know because everyone else can still hear me, I think. So it might be in your settings. Alternatively, if you're not able to watch to hear me, you could potentially just watch it on the YouTube after I post it. Okay. All right. So I'm going to get started. If I know how to make it click. There we go. Okay, so like I said, this is a 3-part series. So that means we started with setup and getting a strong take. The next we worked on teaching the hold. And then the third is retrieving and generalizing. Retrieving and generalizing will be next month at some point when I come back from Iceland. Okay. Like I said in the last one, there is no substitute for good foundations. You do not want to skip steps. Skipping steps will cause you to have to go back and fix things that could have been done the first time and would have taken less time the first time. So good foundations, important. Things that are helpful in teaching duration, so teaching that hold behavior, is a chin rest, and it's your choice or Zen hand. We're going to talk about those things today, and I'm going to show you how you can use them. Now, there are other ways to do it if you don't have those behaviors for your dog, but it is, oh, you can hear now, great. But it is helpful to have those behaviors. Wonderful. Okay, general training reminders. We want to do very short sessions. So with this, I think the longest session you'll see on here is like a 2-minute session. 1 to 3 minutes is good, depending on your dog's attention span, the age of your dog. We want them to be short, motivated sessions. In some cases, like, so you're going to see me train Peak, which is Jamie Popper's Coolie. She is very much like my Coolie in that the retrieve and the hold are not particularly, like, they're not her favorite activity. So you'll see me do, like, I think it's like 3 or 4 clicks before I toss away and give her a chance to go chase food on the ground. So I'm making it really short, especially for dogs where this isn't a natural behavior for them. Like I've said in the past, if you need a retrieving behavior, get a retrieving dog, because it is intrinsically reinforcing for a lot of them, whereas for some other dogs, it's not intrinsically reinforcing. Yeah, like I said, 3 to 5 reps for dogs that are, this isn't as super fun for, and we want to intersperse break periods of easier behaviors. So we do 3 reps of grabbing the thing, and then we go chase food back and forth in a ping pong pattern, and then we do it again, or we take a break to eat food out of the snuffle mat. We don't want to overdo it. And we want to, you'll see in here that one of the clips, I think it's Jake, finish chewing before I offer him the retrieve item again. Make sure you let them finish chewing, or else they will spit it out, and it'll be my fault. And then use easily consumable soft treats so they get them down quickly, and do not train this while your dog is teething. So your dogs that are between 3.5 and 5 months old, do not train this too at this point. Okay. Excuse me. So getting set up, this is the same as part 1. If you want to, you can use a pedestal. If you've already gotten off the pedestal from part one, you don't need it, but you will. When I use a pedestal, it's to keep my dog's feet still and their options limited. So it's like, okay, if you're on the pedestal, there's only a few options of things you can do, and it keeps them more focused on you. If you need to sit, do it from seated. Oh, I got to keep letting people in. Sorry, guys. If you, oh no, go back. All right. If you need to sit, do it seated. If your dog is taller, sometimes it's easier to do it with the dog standing. You want your treats in your treat pouch, or sometimes you'll see me put them on like a stool behind me. If I don't have them in my treat pouch, that's another option. And we want to hold the dowel and the clicker in one hand. So I can hold like this. So dowel and clicker in one hand if I want, or you can use your verbal marker if you're not using a clicker. We also want to consider the reset. So when we're doing the hold, do we want to click, reinforce the dog item goes away and then bring it right back? Or do we want to toss the food away and now the dog goes away and comes back? This has a lot to do with motivation. Some dogs will come back stronger for something if you toss the food away, and they'll come in stronger. I use this a lot with our nose boops. Or some dogs will actually lose like their momentum if you toss the food away. So you need to experiment a little bit with your dog. Okay. Excuse me. Ooh, sorry, guys. Multiple methods for adding duration. So today we are going to, just like with the take in our first round, I'm going to show you several ways to get what you're looking for accomplished. So getting that nice hold accomplished. You can experiment with them as standalone behaviors or in conjunction with other exercises or as different ways to explain something to your dog. So I'm going to show you, I think it's like 4 different ways to teach this. I like to do all of those ways with my dog, but the way that I introduce them may be different for each dog. I'm going to choose the one the dog is going to be most successful, or I think the dog will be most successful with first, and then I'll explain it to them again with the other 3 exercises. However, if your dog gets it with one exercise, great, do that. Okay, so things that we're going to work on today for adding duration. We're going to show you delaying the mark. So where the dog is gripping the thing. So they're doing the take just like we did in the others. And now we're just going to hold off on our click and for a half a second more until we're able to build duration. So that's one way. And I'm going to go over all of these in detail. We're going to do adding movement. Can you take the item and then do a movement something? That is great for dogs that don't like to stay in one position. We're going to do a chin rest or nose press. Can you ask the dog to grip the thing in their mouth and then have them put their head on your chin or their bottom lip on your chin? And then we're going to work on reverse luring. So that's the one I had you look at for homework, where you're going to have food in your hand. And I will go over that one more because it is the most complicated of all of the ones that we're going to work on today. And I have video of all of them. Big thank you to Eve. So Eve and I did a session together on teaching the hold, and I made an amateur error and taped it via Zoom. And then every time I talked, it went to my face instead of her. So we lost all of that footage, which was very sad. However, Eve was so nice to retape some of the exercises that we did together so that we have, I think, 4 different dog examples of certain parts of these behaviors. So you have lots to look at. So thank you very much, Eve, for that. Yeah, much appreciated. Okay, so delaying the mark. This is the easiest to use or fade if you can get the behavior this way, because it doesn't involve fading a hand. It doesn't involve fading the food. It's literally just, can we delay this mark? In this one, we're gonna mark for half a second more of grip while still holding the object and keeping the hand on the object. So you're gonna see throughout this session, sometimes I take my hand off the object, sometimes I keep it on. If you're doing competition obedience stuff and returning to hand is absolutely critical, in the first steps, I would keep your hand on. If dropping the object occasionally doesn't matter to you, then you can start experimenting with taking your hand off. One thing about delaying the mark is if your dog is operant or a dog that shapes a lot, they may start offering other behaviors if you delay the mark too long. So again, when I'm saying delay the mark, I'm saying the dog grips the object, you wait just a second longer, not just right when they put it in their mouth, and then you mark and reward, and then you increase the amount of time that they're holding it that way. Once you've got a dog that can do a second or 2 of duration, then I alternate easy hard. Just like you see me do with everything, We want to increase the average duration over time, but not the single event duration every single time. So instead of doing, we're going to hold it for 1 second, click and reward. We're going to hold it for 2 seconds, click and reward. We're going to hold it for 3 seconds, click and reward. We're going to hold it for 1 second. We're going to hold it for 3 seconds. We're going to hold it for 2 seconds. We're going to hold it for 5 seconds. So we're basically going to increase average duration, but not make it harder every time, because that is demotivating to a lot of dogs. We also want to think about marking before they munch on the object, and or picking an object they don't want to munch on. So some dogs will get mouthy. We want to click before that happens. Whoop. I'm going to shut the window because my neighbors' cane horses are barking their heads off. There must be a delivery person. Anyone else's dog live in the woods and bark when there's a mailman? All right. So we're going to consider marking while still holding if you're doing obedience. I talked about that. And I use this delaying the mark method for Jake, the one in the picture there. But I have found more success with other methods over time. When I was teaching Jake the hold, he was pretty young. And I was a pretty young trainer, and now I use reverse luring a lot more for this. So I'm going to show you all the different ways that you can teach it so that you have a lot of tools in your toolbox, because not all dogs learn the same, and there's lots of ways to explain things to your dog. Okay, so we're going to look at delaying the mark and ping-ponging duration here. I don't know if you can see these closed captions, but they're in the way wherever I put them. Okay. All right, so here we're just working on her gripping it. You can see my setup. I've got my clicker. It's like one of those ring clickers in my left hand. My food is behind me, and I'm just warming her up by clicking for her getting it. Super. And you can hear me counting. So I'm not telling her anything. I'm not telling her hold. She's just gripping it, and I'm counting. So she spit it out because she didn't finish that kibble. I give it to her again. Nice. Then I do an easy one. Good. Hear Jake panting in the background. So bad. And I'm counting for your benefit, not for hers. In real life, do not count out loud, or you will need that as part of the behavior. I asked Eve to count too. I believe she counts in this as well. So this is Eve and Juno, some of my elite Patreon people. Again, thank you so much. And this is Juno.
And 2, yes.
After she has already done like 20 minutes of practice that day. So she's a real trooper.
You do it for the ball.
Now, what I love that Eve did here is she changed the motivator. So because Juno had done a ton of this, she's a little bit flat. So she said, okay, what can I use as a motivator? I'm going to use the ball. And also amazing catch there, like really one-handed amazingness.
One catch.
Super.
Nice, Juno. Good job.
Yeah, there's some skills, Eve.
1 and 2 and 3 catch.
Good. And notice her marker there is the cue to catch the ball. So instead of marking with a yes, because she's not delivering food, she's using her toy marker.
1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 catch.
Super.
Good.
So she went from 3 to 5. And then Juno's going to chew on her ball as a reward. And she did an easy one. So notice she went up from 5, then down to a super easy one. That's what we want to do for our dogs. We want them to be like, I never know when she's going to click, so I better just hold it until something good happens.
And catch.
Super.
Nice, good girl.
I think she does one more rep and then
1 and
gives her a
2
break.
And 3 and 4 and 5 catch.
Super.
Nice, good girl.
All right, so that's delaying the mark. We're just going ping-ponging back and forth, easy to hard. So that's the easiest way to do it if your dog tolerates that method, because it involves no fading of any type of prop or of the food in the. Oh, how do I make this happen? Okay. Adding movement. All right. So this is one that I use a lot for dogs that don't have a good history of staying or have that are a little bit more erratic. when they train, like a little more high energy, harder to calm down. Adding movement can be really helpful for this. So some dogs don't do as well with stationary behavior. So moving basically suits them better and also makes them less sour to retrieving. Because if you're saying, okay, you need to hold this thing and maybe you're not a natural retriever and also you need to stand still with it, some dogs that will make the whole thing painful. It'll make them a little bit sour. So we want to do something instead that suits their personality. So some people also don't need a true hold. So for instance, if your goal with your hold is to do a retrieve and have the dog walk with you, so carrying the object, you maybe don't need a stationary hold. So you might do it this way instead. So with this, we're going to work on the item moving off center and the dog tendency to move back. And then we're going to also work on known behaviors. So sit pretty, spin, or other high value behaviors. It doesn't have to be a sit pretty or a spin. It can be anything your dog does well and knows how to do. So it could be they take the object and they go from a stand to a sit, if that's a behavior your dog knows well. But what I find with sit pretty specifically is because when they do their sit pretty, they're kind of like back on their haunches, they naturally put their head up, which keeps the object in their mouth a little bit better. We want to warm up by alternating hold and movement behavior and then link the two together. So let's look at an example of that. Okay, so Juno, again, she's warming up her sit pretty. So we're reinforcing for her sit pretty. And then we're reinforcing for her just taking the object. And then I think we reinforce again for sitting pretty. See how she's tipping her head back too? That will naturally keep the object in their mouth so you can get a longer duration. So it looks like we're combining behaviors, which is true. That's what we're doing. But we're also basically doing duration. So it's taking it 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5. Right? So we're still getting the same duration. We're just accomplishing it in a different way. And this might be an easier way to explain it to your dog.
Yes, very nice, Juno. Good job. Spin. Yes, good job. Nice.
And if your dog is less experienced, so Juno had a little bit of skills with this, as soon as they complete the spin, get your hand in there, mark it, and reward.
Spin. Yes, good job. Nice, Juno.
Super.
Nice, smart girl.
Awesome. Okay. And notice that session was, why does it do that? Okay. Notice that session was super short too. Everything we're doing is pretty short. Now, this is another way to do this. I actually learned this one from Donna Hill, I believe. So this is where we're going to move the item off center and then bring it back. So I'll show you that. I'm going to warm him up a little. You'll notice in every one of these exercises, even if the dog has done it before, I am warming them up. This is actually Jake's first time doing this exercise. I taped it a while ago now, doing this particular exercise. And what I love, I want to just point one thing out here when we're talking about our holds is what Jake is doing is he's coming up to grip it. Don't be tempted to put it in their mouth. Do your best to try and keep the thing stationary and really mark for them coming at the object. All right, so now I'm going to start moving it to the side. So I just move it slightly off center. His tendency is going to be to move slightly back towards me because that's where the snacks are. They're with me. So he's naturally going to move back over. So I'm going to use that tendency to get slightly more duration. Switching my clicker. And it's a little bit of movement here. We're talking about like 30 degrees of movement to start. But when you're first starting, that's a big deal for a dog that's never had to do this before and maybe isn't a natural retriever. I've taught the hold this way to lots of non-retrieving breeds. And the reason that you're seeing a lot of non-retrieving breeds here is that it's a lot easier to teach it to retrievers and you maybe can, not have to go through all of these skills. So I want to show you with dogs, like this dog in particular, what's very interesting about Jake is that he didn't play with toys, wouldn't pick a thing up when I first got him. Because he was a rescue, I got him 2 years old, he had no skills and he lived outside on a rope for his entire 2 years. So he had no skills and no reference for picking things up. So shaping it from the ground was absolutely critical for this dog to be successful. So it is possible with older dogs. It is possible with off breeds who don't play with toys. All right. I am not doing a great job at switching things. Okay. All right. So that's another way to do it. So now we are able to do it with delaying the mark. We're able to do it with movement. Now we're going to talk about chin rest or nose press. So back in the day, they used to teach these types of behaviors with force and punishment, and or sometimes people would just put the thing in the dog's mouth and hold their dog shut, or hold their mouth shut. How can we teach this alternatively where the dog is opting into the behavior? We can do that with a known behavior like a chin rest. So you're getting a natural rest to keep the mouth closed, okay? Or a nose press, depending on your dog. Some dogs like chin rests, some dogs like nose presses. I don't care what works best for your dog, but you can combine your gripping the behavior with the nose press or gripping with the chin rest. So we're going to warm up just like we did with the last set of behaviors. Is we're going to warm up with a few reps of the method you're going to use. So the dog 100% needs to be fluent in that behavior. If you do not have a solid chin rest or a sticky nose touch, so a nose touch that stays on your hand, you need to work those things before you try and combine them with anything else. So they need to be fluent. We want to warm up also with gripping the object. So we're going to do practicing each of those things before we put them together. This is the exact same protocol as the last thing we did, just a different way of explaining it, as well as having a duration, basically combining a duration behavior like your chin rest or your sticky nose touch. Okay, so chin without object, present object, once gripped, immediately ask for chin. So that's the way that I do it. Some people will do it differently, but you're going to ask them to grip it, immediately offer the chin. Now, most dogs are not going to, once they grip it, especially when they're new to this, they're not going to like press their head down. So just having your hand under there, because when I start teaching chin rest, I actually start with just touching their chin and reinforcing. So you're going to do the same thing with this. They might not naturally slam their head down against your hand. You're just going to rest your hand lightly there. Okay. Now we're going to do another rep without the object, do a rep of just gripping the object, and then a rep with gripping and chin rest, repeat. So basically, once you start doing your chin rest one, you don't have to do it every time. So people think that once you get to like this level where you're doing the chin rest with the grip, that every single time you're going to do it that way. Make it easy and hard for your dog. So you're going to do one rep like this, one rep of chin rest, one rep like this and chin rest. Now you might go back to just gripping it again. You don't have to work linearly. We want to progress, but we can do it in a ping pong arrangement. And you can combine this with reverse luring. So we haven't talked about reverse luring yet, but if that is a skill that your dog has, you can also use your chin rest with reverse luring if that's helpful for your dog. We're also going to talk about fading the use of the hand, because the downside to using this method is you've got the dog gripping it, they're on the chin rest. Now we have to fade this bottom hand, right? Because we've been using it to help them with steadiness. So we have to fade that. So I'll show that too. All right. Hold with chin rest. Let's see. Who did I put? Okay, this is Jake. I'm using, whenever I do this with a dog that knows some of the behavior, I try to do something different so that it's harder for them. So this dowel is ridiculously large. This is not a good size dowel for you to start any behavior with a dog, but I wanted to practice it with that so that you can see a dog that might struggle a little bit more with it.
Chin. Yes.
So we've got a nice chin behavior. He knows it on cue. He's putting,
Yes.
Now I'm rewarding for gripping.
Chin. Yes.
Alternating between gripping and chin.
Yes.
And now we're going to combine those behaviors together.
Chin. Yes.
I'm just doing just a tiny amount to start. So just like a little bit.
Yes.
I'm not asking for a ton of duration. I'm just having successful reps.
Chin.
So nothing happens there.
Yes.
I'm just going to pause it for a second. So he spits it out, nothing happens, I just offer it again. If he's spitting it out more than once in a row, I need to decide what's going on here and I need to change my strategy. Do I need to do more chin rest? Do I need to do more grips? If your dog is failing, not doing it for 2 reps, that's a hint for you that you need to go back and work on your foundations more. If it's just 1, I don't worry too much about it. But it's 2 in a row that I start going, okay, I need to do something differently.
Chin. Yes.
So you'll notice there, again, I'm not even touching his chin. My hand is just under there and it's just helping with the steadiness.
Yes.
And I'm continuing to hold the dowel here. You could start experimenting with taking your hand off of the dowel for certain dogs. So now we've got Juno back here again. She's practicing this exercise. So she's working on, she's got a nice chin rest already. She grabs it. Yay. We reinforce for that. So we're just warming her up. I did this at 2 speed because we're just warming up here. Oh, okay. So there's another thing where she was chewing and then she spit it out. That happens sometimes. No big deal.
Yes.
And notice Eve put her hand on first and then marked for the reward for the behavior. So she put her hand back on.
Yes. Very good.
And that time she just said yes. I don't think for Eve, I think she uses this for a retrieve for service dog work. So I don't think she's doing competition obedience stuff with this dog. And also you can teach competition obedience without putting your hand on every time. It's just, you know, something that some competition obedience people feel like they should never, ever, ever drop the dumbbell. So, all right. So that's our chin rest example. I want to show, I want to talk about fading the hand. So when we're doing our chin rest, we do need to fade this hand off of it. So ways to do that would be shifting your hand position. So maybe going from like this to this, going hand on, hand off, hand on, hand off. And then I also put in here tapping also to ensure a stronger hold. That's for actually fading. That's like a little error on my part. That's for fading, having your hand in the picture, and for not basically keeping their grip strong. And then always go back to the dowel when you're marking, if that's important for you, and that encourages them to return it to hand. So let me show you an example of that. So I have my chin and I'm marking and reinforcing for that. And now I'm taking my hand away, coming back, marking and rewarding. Hand goes up and down. So now she doesn't need the chin to be able to hold it. Now I'm moving my hands all around. Okay, so that's just me working on fading that chin rest. All right, let's talk about the big one, which is reverse luring. And if anyone has questions on this, you know, once I finish talking about it, be sure to put them in the chat, because I think of all of the methods, this can be the most confusing for people. So reverse luring, I believe it was originally used or at least popularized by Fanny Gott. She's using Susan Garrett's It's Your Choice game. You've seen me do the It's Your Choice game quite a bit. I will show you a practice of that as well in the video. So, or clamshell game. And it basically creates a keep going signal. So the food in your hand, so you've got food in your hand. When your hand is open, that is essentially a keep going signal. You're doing it right, keep going. When my hand is closed, now that's saying you're not doing it right, try something else. Okay, so we've got food in the hand. When the dog is doing the duration behavior that we want, the hand opens. As soon as they stop doing it, hand closes, they do it again, hand opens. I do have a full video on how to train this on Patreon, and so you should have watched that for homework. If you haven't, you can go back and watch that later, and I am going to show it a little bit here. So if the hand is open, keep going. If the hand is closed, offer something else. You can use this to delay the mark while still communicating with the dog that they're doing the right thing. This is why I use this, because the dogs that I personally train are pretty operant, meaning that they're going to throw a lot of behavior. If I try to delay the mark, sometimes they'll be like, she's not marking, I must be doing it wrong. I should switch something up. I should gnaw on it. I should move my head. I don't want any of those things. The hand being open with food in it is the keep going, you're doing it right signal. So if your dog understands this way of communicating, it is a very clear way to communicate with your dog. It is a more advanced concept. You don't have to train it this way if you don't want to. And oh, and I also will show a holding the dumbbell between legs version. So if you are struggling with all of the things in your hand, which is totally normal, that stuff is hard. It's another way to do it. So I'll show you that as well. So reverse luring basics, hand open, keep going, hand closed, regrip. So specifically for training the dog, man, I might run out of hands here. So if the dog is gripping the thing, hand is open. As soon as the dog takes their, I can't do it with, I've only got two hands, takes their mouth off of it, the hand closes. All right, let's see it in action. So I think this is Peaks. Let's see. Yeah, so this is Jamie's dog Peak that I was training. We just did a couple sessions of this. She wants to offer me the paw, so she obviously hasn't done the It's Your Choice game in quite a while, so we're just doing a little warm-up of that. So I've got the food in my hand. As soon as she stops trying to get it, I mark and reinforce from the other hand. And she seems to have been taught this game as a look away game. That's fine. I'm not going to change how she was taught this. I'm just going to work with her with how she knows it. All right, so she practiced that. Notice that I literally did that for 4 clicks and then gave her a break. So she genetically is very similar to Cool Whip. Her mom has the same genetics as Cool Whip, and they have so much similar behavior. It's bananas. So we're just warming up, gripping the dowel, and now we're going to work on reverse luring with the dowel. So she grips it, I reinforce, she grips it, and I immediately open the hand. As soon as they grip it, the hand opens. So we grip, hand opens, mark, reinforce. One thing to note with doing this when you have the dowel is typically when I do It's Your Choice, I have you take the food out of the food hand with your other hand. That's not a possibility with the dowel because you don't have enough hands. So I will just feed it directly, but I flip my hand over and feed. So this is very clearly hand open. This is very clearly I am feeding you. That's important. So see how I get that nice stillness there? I did like 4 reps. I give her a break. I get her off the platform. The other reason I like platforms is it's an opt-in, right? The dog is choosing to re-engage with me by getting back up on the platform. It's almost like a start button behavior because she could just choose to walk off and go play with her disc because I'm in a giant training room here. Now she's gonna go get food on the floor. So here, I just want to be really clear. This dog, like I said, low tolerance for this skill. So I gave her a break and now I am resetting her by having her run all across the floor and go get food. So we're getting a mental break for her there. All right, so now I wanted to show this really lovely camera angle and my pajamas of us training with the stick between our legs. The reason I do this is it gives you extra hands and it also teaches you not to put the stick in the dog's mouth. Okay, so a lot of people will go the extra inch for their dog. If I put the stick between my legs, there is no option of me helping them. So this keeps me honest as well. So I'm going to show this. I also like it for Cool Whip, who doesn't have a lot of possession with it. She doesn't grip super hard, so it makes her want to pull it out from between my legs, which I actually like in this case. So I'm teaching her to grip it. I'm just showing her like you can grip this between my legs and shaping that portion of it, and then we'll get to the reverse luring part.
Nice. Nice. Nice job. Nice work, girly.
So now I give her a break. Now we're going to go on to the next one. So now she grips it and I open my hand.
Nice, good girl. Yeah. Break. Ready?
So on that rep, right, she thought about doing something else. Again, this isn't her favorite behavior to practice. So she starts to think about going into the down and she goes back for it. I immediately mark and reinforce for that because that is what I want, is her to want to do this thing. If she did more than one of those reps, I would think about taking a break, think about doing something else, because I don't want to build in a behavior chain where she starts to back into a down and then regrips it.
Nice, good girl. Good job.
And people always want to know what I'm feeding. In this particular one, I'm feeding pieces of liver.
Nice job. Take a break. Good girl. Break. All right, I'm gonna try it here.
So now we're just doing the same exercise,
Nice.
but I'm holding it in my
Yeah,
hand.
for you. Good girl. Good job. There you go.
I didn't realize Jake's breathing would be so hard in the background. I'm getting really excited there just because she's
Good job.
losing a little bit of interest. And then I got a nice break
Nice
there.
job. Good girl. Nice, good job. Good girl. Work. Yeah. Good job. Very nice. Yeah. Nice work. Good girl.
So I just want
Yeah.
to show, this
Good girl.
moment for a second here.
Good job.
Yeah.
Very nice. Yeah.
Okay, so when you're teaching that it's your choice, do you see here how her line of sight is directly, I mean, you can't see my eyes, but you can see that she's directly staring up at me. When I teach it's your choice, so the game in your hand, I try to select for eye contact. So once I have a dog that will look away from the thing, so not try and get the thing, my next step is to very much reinforce for staring up at me, because then I have this beautiful picture where I've got the food as her keep going cue. She's staring directly at me. The item isn't going to fall out of her mouth because she's naturally holding it in, even if she doesn't have a super tight grip. And that gives me what I want, which is eye contact from the distraction. So just a note on when you're teaching it's your choice. And some people will reinforce for backing up. If your ultimate goal is to teach a hold, reinforce for the eye contact instead.
Nice work.
All right,
Good
and I think I
girl.
show one more thing
Yeah.
here, but I forgot what. Oh, yeah. So then
Okay.
I started teaching Jake to do this. So I never taught him with it's your choice. And I also used a metal object. So metal is typically difficult for a lot of dogs. If you're thinking about teaching the hold, start teaching metal young, if you can, as a fun object to pick up. So I'm using an off balance metal object. Now notice this dog was not taught to look at me with it's your choice. He's just staring at the food.
Nice job, buddy. That was a good
And
boy.
does that matter for him?
That was good
No,
boys.
it doesn't, but
Take. Nice.
I just wanted to show you the
Good
difference.
job. Take. You burping? You taking my nail polish off too? All right, one more. Nice job, buddy. That's a good boys.
all right. So that is a couple of different little training sessions there. Okay. Does anyone have any questions on reverse luring before we talk about adding a cue? And if you think of them, just throw them in the chat and I will answer them as we go. So let's talk about, I can't even see the chat. Okay, nothing's in there. Okay, great. Okay, so let's talk about adding the cue. So you'll notice from the beginning of this, we're 2 parts into this series and I still have not added a cue yet to what we're doing. And that is because I do not want a separate cue for hold if I can help it. I want that when you take something, you hold it until I tell you otherwise, or do something with it until you hold on to it until I give you something else to do with it. So I don't want to have to say take and hold or take and stay or whatever. I want take it and hold it in your mouth until something else happens. Only once my dog is taking it and holding it for 3 seconds will I start adding a cue when I'm getting a clean training loop. So clean training loop looks like you present the object, the dog grips the object, they hold it until you mark. As soon as you mark, they eat the food, you present the object, they go right back to going to try and get the thing. There's no extraneous behavior. They're not walking away. They're not sniffing the ground. They are literally ate the food, went back and tried to do the thing. Once we're at that point, that's when I'm going to add my cue. So we want to add the cue the moment before they take the object and then start pushing the cue back to where they present the object. So you've got the object. They're about to come and get it. You're about to come and get it. Take it. And I want to be sure they're going to take it. Whenever I add a cue to something, I always think, okay, would I bet someone $100 that they'll do the thing? That's when I add a cue. If I'm not willing to bet $100 they're going to do the thing, I need to practice it more, because I don't want to ask my dog to take it and then they say, screw you, and then they don't take it. And then they learn that that doesn't mean to take it. So I want to make sure that they know to take it. So I start by saying, my dog's coming in, take it. They grip the object, mark reward. Then I start moving it back once they're successful, take it, then they go in and get it. And then I start moving it back to them being further away. I present the object and I ask here, take it, and then they move in and grab the object. That's how I'm adding the cue to the behavior. You don't have to call it take it. You can call it whatever you want, pick it up, get it. I don't really care. Whatever you want. Dog doesn't speak English, but I want to be consistent about adding my cue once the dog is successful already doing the thing. Prior to this, the cue to take the thing is your presentation of the thing, right? That's how the dog knows what to do. In the same way that when we're shaping, like go to place, the way they know to go to place is that the mat is right in front of them between you and them. So that's what, when we're shaping, that's what we do. We want a clean training loop, and then we add the thing. I also wanted to talk about proofing for hand distraction. So this is a little bit of Juno practicing proofing, not having to have their hands on it. So she's touching it, moving back.
Yes.
Basically showing her that moving my hands around or touching the object doesn't mean to release it. You only release it when I give you the cue.
Yes.
So for right now, the cue is the mark that we're done. So she's saying yes, she knows to release it because food is coming.
You know.
So she's proofing it for distractions. Juno grips it. And just to point out there, Eve did a really nice job of waiting for Juno to come all the way to her. One of the things we did work on in our session that I messed up taping was making sure that Juno came all the way in. And she does a really nice job here, just waiting for Juno to do all the work. So that was really nice. So she's touching it, she's moving her head,
Yes.
she's not, and then she marks and reinforces. That's an important part, because it's very easy for your dog to think as soon as my human grips it, I should release it. We don't necessarily want that. If you don't care, you don't care. But if you want them to hold it until you tell them otherwise, then you need to practice that as well. Adding a verbal release. This is very simple as far as execution of this. Your current release is either the click or the yes marker, right? All we're going to do is switch it to whatever you want it to be. So if it's give, or drop it, or whatever you'd like it to be, you're going to do the word. So the dog is holding the thing, and then you're going to put your hand on the thing. And when you're ready, you're going to say give, and then you're going to immediately present them with a food reward. So they're like, oh, I give it up when she brings the food to my mouth. So here, give, food to dog. Okay, I think. Oh, generalizing the hold object. I wasn't going to cover this on this one. I'm going to cover it a lot more next month, but I wanted to talk a little bit about it here. So to this point, we've been using the same objects for teaching the whole thing. Now I want to start using more similar but interchangeable objects. So change up the objects early in the process, but don't make them incredibly difficult. So I might use a pencil, a pen, a dowel, and a dumbbell. Something that's very, very similar. When I'm starting to practice this, I'm not going to move on to tougher stuff until I've got a full retrieve, typically. So if I start with a dowel, I might move on to a wooden spoon, and then I might go to a dumbbell, and then I might go to like a light wicker basket that they could hold, and then move on to wigglier things, because the object matters a lot. So if I'm asking them to hold a leash, that is very different than asking them to hold a pencil. It feels different in their mouth. So I'm starting with things that are similar and then branching out from there. And we're going to talk more about generalizing in the next session. because there's a lot to do with that. So the next session, we're going to be putting all the things together. So we're going to be working on retrieving and generalizing. I'm going to give you some games to play. And yeah, hopefully that will be helpful. All right, so I'm going to stop the share. Okay, so that's everything for the hold for today. I'm just checking, there's no comments. Does anyone have any questions about the stuff, things that you were struggling with, or anything like that that you want a little help with? You can throw those in the chat. Otherwise, I'm going to have you practice that for next week before, or next month before we put that all together. Okay. I'm also thinking of doing, this is unrelated, but I am thinking of doing a little live stream potentially on Friday. I had one of my Patreon folks ask a question about, again, like I said, this is a little unrelated, but about why I'm not choosing a herding breed for my next service dog with the lifestyle that I have, which would support a herding breed. So I want to talk more about that and do a little bit of a deep dive into that. So pay attention to Patreon. I'm hoping that I can fit it into my schedule Friday, maybe around lunchtime, do a little lunch and learn type of situation. So if that interests you, that will be posted for everyone on Patreon. Super. And hello from Guatemala. Yeah, I'm having so many people from all over the world. It's so fun. So thank you all for being here. Thank you to Eve, who really helped me out with some additional video footage. And I hope you all have an awesome day. And I will see you next month for putting it all together and doing the full retrieve.